So can we start this conversation with blood sugar and what changes at 35 as those hormones
Oh my
change?
gosh. And you and I are talking ahead of this, that I was just writing an article for my newsletter about even something like stress and blood sugar. So blood sugar is glucose. They're the same,
Yeah.
right? So you go get a fasting glucose. Some of you have a continuous glucose monitor, or you check your glucose at home with a glucometer. And we have resilience. We have the ability when we're a lot younger as my friend called it, the beer and pizza diet. We can stay up late, we can handle stress, we can eat like crap. And our body tends to bounce back. Not always, but it tends to bounce back like, okay, I got you. And then we seem to cross the threshold of 35. And because our hormones are shifting, which impacts the way that we can or can't handle stress, which impacts the way that we even utilize glucose in places like our brain, it all starts to shift. Now, it's not overnight, but it is this sort of subtle downhill slide if you're not paying attention. And this can result in things such as mental fatigue. So people go, I'm so tired. I'll go, can you go for a walk? Or is it studying something? Can you read a manual? And they'll go, oh yeah, I can walk for hours. I love walking my dog. I love walking on my neighborhood. I walk the beach. Oh yeah, you're right. It's the long mental focus that's hard for me. Helping my kids with their homework, reading a manual, reading through a lot of slides. Like I get very distracted and tired. Again, brain, right? Or they're like, well, I feel good and then I'm hangry. It's immediately I go, I'm hungry, I'm moody, I'm quiet, or I got headache. And so we start to get these subtle metabolic shifts that can also result in things such as our weight gain, changes around the middle in particular, that sort of spare tire change. And again, it can be subtle. It doesn't mean it like you wake up on your 35th birthday and all this happens, but these are the changes that we start watching for. Now, the reason this is so important is because our metabolic health impacts, just like our hormones, every single system in our body. It in fact impacts your skeletal system, your nervous system, your immune system, your cardiovascular system. I mean, absolutely everything. And so by tightening up, improving, focusing on your metabolic health at 35 and older, it's going to have literally system-wide benefits for the rest of your life. And that's where it's important.
So would you say going into your 40s, making sure your metabolic health are ready, like if you go in with your metabolic health off, this is going to get even crazier for you, this perimenopausal journey. But if you go in with your hemoglobin A1C around 5, you've got you can build a fasting lifestyle, like you're going in already metabolically healthy, then it'll be a much easier experience for you. Would you say that? I
find it over and over, the answer is yes. I find the women who go into their 40s with those solid numbers, glucose, hemoglobin A1C, insulin, leptin, triglycerides. So these are all easy labs that can be done. You can order them yourself often. Your primary care can order them. Insurance often covers them. And if you're in a great optimal range, these women, it's not that they'll not have no symptoms, but they tend to do better. They tend to have it easier than somebody who is pre-diabetic or diabetic or insulin resistant going into perimenopause, where we become more insulin resistant by default at that time. We tend to have better brain health if we're metabolically healthy compared to somebody who's not, because glucose plays a big role in whether or not our brain does or doesn't work. So some of things absolutely, everything from even like wound healing, recovering from illness. I hear this, women go, I just feel flu-like all the time, or I keep thinking I'm getting sick. I feel like, and I'm like, ooh, yes, estrogen does play a big role in that, but so does metabolic health, and they go hand in hand. And so it could just be a dialing up where you were at like a level 3 going into it, and now you're dialing it up to a level 8, whereas somebody who was down at a 0 or 1, they're only at a 4 or 5 when they come into perimenopause. And so it's this relative difference that I see in women with better metabolic health.
So with estrogen, we know let's just be more specific. I call estradiol the diva. Yeah. I feel like she's like a diva who's like, hey, guess what magic I've been doing for you every month that you didn't even know. And now I'm going to go away. And on my exit, I deserve the full pomp and circumstance, because I'm out, and then you're going to notice me gone, and you're going to regret that that I'm gone.
Yeah.
So when estradiol goes away, you become more insulin resistant.
Yes.
Would you
Yes.
agree with that?
Yep.
Okay. And so the message is starting at 35, really 40, but let's say it's now getting earlier. Like it's in your late 30s, you may notice your old tricks that used to keep you thin don't work anymore.
Yes.
Would you say that's
yes,
accurate?
and I'd say you probably have heard this too. Women are like, I thought I could just get away with. I haven't really had to do
Yes.
anything. I haven't changed anything, Mindy, and everything all of a sudden changed. Like, you're right. And now it's
Right.
time to make big changes. You're a whole different person.
Oh, right. Okay. So, but then as you get deeper in, now you're 47, as you get deeper into the perimenopause experience, then there's this strange thing that happens where you look down, you're doing all your new right things. You got the fasting, you've got the food figured out, but then you look down at your belly and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Yes. Yes, and in fact, there's even the theory I've seen it a bunch in the literature, and I see it given the amount of lab work that I look at, because when women have a lot of estrogen, we tend to have more estrogen receptors in our hips, our thighs, our booty. That's often the shape, that's where we gain our weight. If you're going to gain weight, not as much around the middle. It doesn't mean you can't, it just means estrogen plays a role of directing where fat goes. Testosterone and other androgen hormones, which we all have as women, likes to keep it around the center, the apple shape. And what happens is our testosterone doesn't decline, usually, at the same rate as estrogen. So we become relatively out of balance, testosterone and estrogen. We become relatively higher than testosterone. Even if it is going down, it's still out of balance relative to estrogen. So in a seesaw, testosterone's up and estrogen's kind of down. Because we have this imbalance, now all the receptors around the belly area are getting super stimulated. And that leads to that visceral adipose tissue gain, the weight gain around all our organs that's putting on the spare tire around the center. Now, other reasons can be for that. High cortisol, right? High insulin, like we have other reasons. But that decline, when you mention that estrogen's like, I'm outie, best of luck, I bet you miss me. That is one of that ratio is something they're starting to study in the literature to go, you know what? Estrogen really does play a role in relation to testosterone and where you're going to gain weight. It tends to move up as opposed to down, and can be infuriating for a lot of women who go, I'm doing all the things. And my body shape just changed. And their weight on the scale may not change, but they do notice everything kind of moved up versus down.